our feature match. We have SCG Ringer, Edgar Flores. That term, I know it gets thrown around, but Edgar is one of the people who, it was kind of like pioneered for people like Edgar, where, you know.
Yeah, he earlier this year, he had one of the sickest tears we've seen in a long time. Looks like it may be a mirror. Chris leads with a Seachrome Coast.
Yeah, Edgar is playing a blue-white, just a blue-white blade, you know, like his style, his signature style is that of Call Blade, you know. Chris Higashi leading with a Seachrome Coast. Could be like 4 different decks.
Yeah.
But given that this is an SCG Open, Call Blade is probably, you know, just it being a blade deck is probably the most likely.
And Edgar's going to go for a Spellskite. It resolves. And it looks like Chris is playing a more controlling deck.
Absolutely. A lot more people were playing Think Twice in the Call Blade decks before, but recently they've kind of moved into a much more aggressive, like needing to be tempo-based and needing to spend their mana efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, the Mirror Crusader plan is better than the Think Twice plan in a world of Wolf Run Ramp and decks like that.
Although, historically, the Think Twice plan is good against the Mirror Crusader plan.
It's true. Think Twice is a card I feel like people may have overvalued when it was reprinted.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
Original printing, it
was fine. It was
pretty
a fun
good.
Card. It's fine, much the same way Divination is fine.
Yes.
Like it's fine. It is fine, you know. But I think a lot of people were just sort of, they're like, oh wow, it's been reprinted. It's you know, like it's one of those cards. It's like Mystical Teachings or something, but it's not that kind of card. It's fine.
Instant speed, card advantage.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good card.
In a world where you're allowed to cast Mana Leak, that's
it's like
something to be.
It's like
there's
Shock.
something to be said for that.
You know, like Shock. It's a fine card. Incinerate, like it's not breaking any records, but
I don't think it's quite an Incinerate. It's like a Shock. Shock's a fair.
I mean, isn't Incinerate not even like Shock and Incinerate like the same level of quality right now, right?
I think like right now they are.
Yeah. All I mean is like right now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so both players not committing anything more to the board. Edgar pondering, setting things up a little bit. He has a Spellskite. Chris has a Swamp, though. So the fact that he's got Swamp, Plains, Island, Seachrome Coast, this could mean a lot of things. He could be splashing black in his Call Blade deck. He could be playing, most likely, he's Solar Flare.
Yes.
And Solar Flare is still very, very popular. He could be playing a more controlling deck that just, you know, Esper control. My money is on Solar Flare. Now, how does the Solar Flare Call Blade matchup, the Solar Flare Blue White Blade matchup really play out?
The Inkmoth Nexai are really good. They
dodge the O-rings in the days.
Dodge the O-rings,
the Lilianas, all that.
And especially that Edgar was able to, you know, stick that turn 2 Spellskite. I think he's played enough Call Blade to know that right now he can probably just lean on his opponent with some Inkmoth Nexai and do some damage.
The fact that Chris has played Think Twice, it makes me think he's actually playing like an Esper control deck, you know? Like one of those decks we've seen recently that's basically a blue-white control deck that splashes like Doom Blades, you know? Or it's a blue-black deck that splashes Day of Judgment, you know?
So Edgar's going to go ahead and Snapcaster Mage this Ponder here.
Just inches. Very, very patient. This is when Edgar Flores is in his element. Just looking to get a tiny little edge against other blue decks. Interesting.
Yeah. To resolve, I mean, even if he does go ahead and pay for that Mana Leak, then like what ends up happening is that he's not even able to flash back the Ponder off the Snapcaster.
Right, so he just has a 2/1.
He's just getting a 2/1 out of it.
But is the 1 poison counter worth more than the 2/1? There's that Consecrated Sphinx. This is so tough for a blue-white deck.
Yeah.
Because really what ends up happening is you just let him draw 2 cards, and then you hopefully have a day or something.
Well, Edgar's going to go ahead and dismember this, and then Snapcaster dismember again during his upkeep, I think.
Okay, that's another Snapcaster.
Yes.
Wow. So there's 8 life. Yeah, that's definitely a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, you don't need the 8 life against the Solar Flare player, or Esper Control. I guess he's looking more and more like the Esper Control we talked about. It's just, you know, a blue control deck splashing black and white for the spot removal and the sweepers. I'm thinking Chris is just going to drop another Sphinx, though.
That would be bad for Edgar.
Yeah. People like this, they always play like 3 or 4 Sphinx.
Yeah.
I play 4 Sphinx. I mean, the Sphinx is just, it's such a good, such a good 6 for these decks that have all the good spells. So, O-Ring, but as we saw, Mole Drifter ability taking effect. So brutal too, because if Chris O-Rings the O-Ring. But Edgar's doing all right. He's got him, you know, he's hit him a fair bit with the Nexus. He's got another guy down. If he can drop a sword, you know, like obviously that'll turn the tide real fast. But the main thing we're going to be seeing is whether or not Chris is able to continue dropping 6s and 7s, you know, 6s or even like a Karn or a Worm Coil.
The Worm Coil wouldn't be exceptional here. I think the Edgar's going to win that race.
See, it's pretty much just Consecrated Sphinx, right?
Yeah.
Or like O-Ring to get back the Sphinx.
Yeah. And that's exactly what he has.
Yeah. So, the first O-Ring takes out the Spellskite. Do we see a third O-Ring? We do. It's amazing the things you can do when you draw 2 extra cards.
Yeah. Now Edgar during his upkeep is going to go ahead and disperse this Consecrated Sphinx.
Oh yeah, if he has Disperse, that's hot right here. Yeah. How common is Disperse these days?
It's like a one of. I think it's pretty common.
Just adds a different dimension. You know, like once in a while you get out from underneath a shrine, or you surprise have a instant speed way to interact, or you just bounce your Snapcaster Mage, like in a pinch.
The bouncing Snapcaster Mage is pretty nice. Edgar was saying that one of the things he really likes to do is block with Snapcaster and then bounce it with a Disperse.
Get a little extra value. Especially when next turn you can go Snapcaster and then choose to Disperse, block again, Disperse your Snapcaster again, and then just Snapcaster whatever you really want after buying yourself several extra turns.
And was that just a stave off?
There's no way. He would have staved off the Consecrated Sphinx.
From Edgar.
Oh, wow.
Save the Ink Moth. I believe Chris is actually at 5 Infect now, if I'm counting correctly.
Yeah, I think we actually accidentally went down. Should be 5. So, the Sphinx is back.
Let's see.
Edgar is running out of ways to postpone this. It does look like he has another O-Ring there. Sadly, Chris will get another 2 cards from the Mole Drifter aspect of the Sphinx, but Edgar saying, I decline to draw. Snapcasting the Disperse.
Yeah.
He's trying to hold it off as long as he can.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
That's it.
That's not good. The Snapcaster Mage can't attack, can it? It's got Summoning Sickness.
One of them cannot attack.
One of them can't attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully stopping the match ASAP. It's probably not going to matter. I mean, it's just 2 damage in a situation, but still important to maintain the integrity of the board state here. Fortunately, our spotter on the floor is Sheriff Wesco, making sure to keep everything official. So, Chris has drawn 4 extra cards from the Sphinx at this point. An O-Ring is going to try to stop it, but once the Sphinx starts drawing cards, so often it just spirals out of control.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, the
Is this a Dissipate?
Yeah,
this is a Dissipate. That's brutal.
That's what it is.
All right. So I mean, obviously, Edgar can just hope that Chris is drawing 3 blanks a turn.
But it's pretty rough.
It is weird that Chris was attacking with his Consecrated Sphinx.
Yes.
That is really peculiar to me because, and maybe he's just committed and not blocking because of Dismember, but. And Edgar's at 8, right?
Yes, Edgar's at 8.
Edgar's at 8 from 2 Dismembers and a Consecrated Sphinx. So, at this point, Chris needs to just not die. I mean, maybe. I guess it really depends on what his 8, what the 8 cards he's drawn in the last 2.5 turns have been.
Yes.
But the fact that he's being so aggressive and continuing to swing.
And now Chris even has like Ghost Quarter, things like that to deal with the Ink Moth. It's just.
So now Edgar drops to 4. O-Ring on a Snapcaster Mage. I guess just to do something, prevent some damage.
I mean, you never know. Maybe his hand is just so full that he would have just had to discard after that.
Yeah, plus...
Just redundant.
Like, Sword of War and Peace, you don't want to kill you in one hit. Maybe he did the math. Swinging anyway. Consecrated Sphinx is threatening lethal here, so he needs to have something.
He has the Ink Moths.
But he doesn't. He's facing a Ghost Quarter, and he kept one. He attacked with 1 Nexus.
He has 2 more Nexus in play. He had 2, and now he just played a 3rd.
Sure. So, after Chris draws his card for the turn, he will have drawn 10 cards in the last 3.5 turns. And that's it.
Yeah.
A Doomblade prevents even the chump block, and we go to game 2.
Chris Higashi up a game here with his Esper control list. It actually did not look like Solar Flare.
Not at all.
Yeah. He was not using his reanimate spells. He was instead going ahead and sphinxing his opponent.
Absolutely. Just like a lot of recently we've been seeing a surge of these blue decks that are, card draw, counter spells, Consecrated Sphinx, and then supported with like Day of Judgment, O-Ring, Doomblade, and Flashback on the Alchemy. So we're about to see the deck list here. So first, Edgar Flores. He's playing both Blade Splicers and Crusaders.
Ooh.
Which is interesting. 1 main deck Stave Off. Multiple Disperses. A main deck Negate. No stranger to the spice, Edgar Flores.
He's always got some spiciness.
And he's got sideboard, I guess, is he going to bring in Revoke Existence? I mean, like it hits O-Rings, but is that enough? Because, I mean, he doesn't know if his opponent has Wormcoil or not. He doesn't want to be too reactive, but none of the rest of his sideboard does anything. So if he has any bad cards game 1, like for instance, I mean, is Dismember actually good? I guess it's not the worst, but it's really hard to dismember a Consecrated Sphinx to death.
You have to do a lot of work.
His build looks really weak to Consecrated Sphinx anyway. Right? Like he just doesn't really have, I mean, he doesn't have any Day of Judgments anywhere, right?
No.
So his only answers to Consecrated Sphinx are
kill them,
double dismember them, or disperse, or O-Ring. I guess the main thing is just that putting a fast clock on them, right?
With a mana leak, yeah.
Definitely looks a little tough. So Chris Higashi is actually playing Solar Flare.
He is. Okay.
He's got Liliana, Unburial Rites. He only has 1 Sun Titan.
That's interesting.
Which I like. I think Sun Titan's okay, but you can't bank on Sun Titan right now. I think that Consecrated Sphinx is by far the best 6, but you want to have at least 1/6 of a different name because of that graveyard, because of Memoricide or Surgical Extraction. Some people would play Wormcoil, but the fact that he has Liliana of the Veil and O-Ring, which could go to the yard from Forbidden Alchemy, it makes it a little bit more appealing to play the Sun Titan.
The Sun Titan.
He's playing a lot of counter magic, which make those Think Twices a little bit better, you know? And Think Twice is still fine. I mean, you need to draw some extra cards, but he does have a very control build, a very streamlined, you know, O-Rings and Doom Blades and Days, trying to hit creatures, Leaks and Dissipates to protect, and then Think Twices and Alchemies, with Snapcasters to give him more of whatever he needs. What I'm interested in is his mana base.
Yeah, so he has 12 black sources, right? Then he has 14 white sources. Then he has hold on
17 blue.
17 blue. So
this is an honest mana base.
Yes, this is a real mana base.
He's got, and because he has 17 blue, you know he can play his Dissipate early, and he can actually cycle his Think Twice on turn 2, which helps him. Like, the only area he's a little shy on is black for Liliana. Like, sometimes it's a little tough for him to play Liliana on turn 3. But that's not even that big of a deal.
Doesn't need to be played on turn 3. You can play it on turn 5 with Mana Leak.
And 12 isn't few. I mean, a 17, you said 17, 14, 12?
Yes.
That's I mean, it's not super exciting, but he still found room, despite having multiple Ghost Quarters in his deck, to fit enough to play, you know. Definitely like that. I mean, that's always one of Esper's weaknesses anyway, you know, in the new format is a little rocky of mana bases.
And he's playing 27 lands, which I also like.
I love that.
Yes.
Why is it so important to play so many lands? You know, because before the Esper deck we saw only at 25.
So the thing is, especially when you're playing these Solar Flare variants, if you miss a land drop before turn 7, it hurts really bad. And in order to not miss land drops for that long, you really need a lot of land.
Like, you don't have Preordained to smooth it out early.
And even with Preordained, you wanted 26.
Often 27.
Yeah.
All right, so Edgar starting it off with, is that a Spellskite? It's hard to tell. It looks like it's Carlos, though. It could be. It's hard to see. You know, it's a Ratchet Bomb.
Okay.
So, and Chris has Island Swamp. A little bit tricky because he's not playing any Scars lands in the first couple turns, which suggests that his mana is not necessarily all the way developed. Blade Splicer. Chris tanking, but we all know darn well if he had a mana wake, he would use it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Edgar brings in the Ratchet Bomb. Now, obviously, he didn't really have any good cards to bring. Like, he doesn't have a lot of great cards, so at least Ratchet Bomb early can tick up high enough and be a seal of Consecrated Sphinx if you play it on 2. Or it can threaten to get rid of O-Rings in weird corner cases. But for the most part, it's aiming to just be a seal of, you know, Consecrated Sphinx.
Which I don't hate.
No. And he doesn't know that Chris isn't going to be, you know, playing Phantasmal Image with Sun Titan and just chaining out, you know. So, Forbidden Alchemy. Such a great card for decks with flashback.
Oh yeah, it's just such a powerful spell in general. That was definitely one of the cards I was most excited about when I read the Innistrad spoiler.
Much to AJ Soccer's chagrin, Forbidden Alchemy has actually turned out to be a Mystical Teachings like engine, where people aren't just using it as a 2-for-1. They are, you know, building around it a little bit to take advantage of the graveyard part. AJ actually is the most recent player to top 8 with Solar Flare, right? Like, didn't he top 8 last week with Solar Flare? Or 2 weeks ago? Or,
I think 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Yeah. Edgar continuing to apply the beats. Does not commit another creature to the board. Why bother, right? Like, you put down one good threat, and then you can kind of protect it, and you don't overextend into a Day of Judgment. I guess
something nice about Blade Splicer is, you know, it's 4 points.
It is.
That's a lot.
And Blade Splicer is, I mean, like, he matches up well against all the removal. I mean, nobody plays Slagstorm anymore, so. So, Chris at this point, just building up his mana supply, still doesn't have double black. But, not clear how much that matters, although I'm anticipating that because Chris hasn't really cast a lot of spells besides Alchemy, that he's looking at a Sphinx very soon. He Doom Blades the token. Edgar now having 6 land, a Ratchet Bomb, and a 1/1 from Blade Splicer guy. Facing down Chris's 5 mana, full grip, successful alchemy.
So yeah, will Edgar try to resolve like maybe a sword here, or
he needs to commit something to the board?
Yeah, he needs something.
He puts the Crusader. He decides to put the Crusader. Maybe he's thinking that if Chris drops the Consecrated Sphinx next turn, it gets dissipated. But yeah,
well, here he just has to pass. Right?
I don't know. Because like if he doesn't have the counterspell, maybe he figures Chris is just going to do it anyway. You just commit your thing to the board. And because if he doesn't play it now, he's not going to be able to equip and activate and cast O-Ring next turn. So I don't know. He's got to also decide: is Chris the type of guy who could potentially not play the Sphinx on 6? Personally, the way I don't think Chris could get away from a Sphinx. Yeah, see, he plays the sword. I don't think Chris could get away from playing the Sphinx next turn, even if Like you'd have to, even if he has the leak, you're not going to wait 3 more turns. You just start doing it, So he plays the sword so that in the event that he is facing the Sphinx next turn, he'll at least be able to equip his Blade Splicer and still O-Ring it if he has the O-Ring. What's not clear is if Chris even has a 6th land.
Yeah, and sometimes you just wish you had 28.
It's really hard to put Chris on going into the tank and coming out with Consecrated Sphinx.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's going to end up happening here.
Snapcaster Mage. Are we going to see Snapcaster on the Alchemy to look for a land?
And we're going to see Snapcaster on the Doomblade.
On the Doomblade. Yeah, you just got to hold this sword off, right? At least you're doing something. It's not super exciting, but it's something. It's just tough because Edgar's Ratchet Bomb is ticking, ever closer to that 6, so that he can have that protection from the Sphinx.
And that's a Sun Titan.
Wow.
Sun Titan returns Blade Splicer.
Sun Titan, brutal. Chris is really going to need a day, but he needs a 6th land too. That missing a beat, just like you talked about.
Yep.
If Solar Flare misses a land before 7, it's
brutal.
Really bad.
That's exactly what happened. He missed it on turn 6.
He missed it on 6. He missed the 6th land drop.
Yeah. It's rough. And I mean, his hand was definitely a keeper. I mean, you kind of have to rely on the top of your deck a little bit. You have to trust.
Oh, Edgar has 2 Sun Titans. Didn't see that because of the exotic spelling of the word Sun Titan. But yeah, the 2 Sun Titans in the board are really putting in some work.
Edgar Flores, excellent blue-white aggro control player. Not the best calligraphy artists.
Is it possible that Edgar Flores actually has the most Planeswalker points because of Callblade or because of Sword of Feast and Famine than anybody else?
I don't even think that's
because of Sword of Feast and Famine, Edgar Flores has used Sword of Feast and Famine to earn more Planeswalker points than anyone else, I believe.
Right now he's in the top 10 in the world in Planeswalker points.
For this year?
For this year.
I believe it. Ben Stark has probably earned a lot of Planeswalker points from Sword of Feast and Famine, though, with that 18x multiplier.
Oh, that's true.
They didn't even record it yet. On the scoring thing, it doesn't even show up yet. But he really does have 18x as his multiplier for Paris, even though they haven't adjusted him yet, So, Sword of Feast and Famine, equipped. Chris on the Chump. Hope Edgar doesn't have counter magic. So we have a Snapcaster Mage coming down. We're going to most likely see this flashback on the Forbidden Alchemy? Digging to that
I think that's
Judgment.
the only option. Yeah, and then double chump. Let's find a day.
It's interesting that he chooses to Alchemy now. A lot of people forget, you don't have to cast the spell immediately from Snapcaster. You can just wait till their end step.
Yeah. Then he gets to leave open counter magic and things like that.
Yeah.
another strong interaction in Chris' deck is Forbidden Alchemy with Think Twice.
Oh yeah, you just get extra cards sometimes.
You sometimes get a freebie.
Edgar moves the sword over. Why not? Chris untaps. So now he's got to get he's got a day here, right?
Yes.
But the problem is that if Edgar leaks, he can't even leak to protect it. Think Twice, continuing to look for that day, which it is painfully clear he does not yet have.
Yeah. And he's probably just going to pack it in here.
I mean, he's not dead immediately, right? Like he can. I mean, like, cause like if he just O-rings the next, is he dead to the next? What's the creature that the sword is? Yeah, because
so it's not a Sun Titan.
Yeah, because if he O-rings, at least he holds.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're right. I didn't know he had the O-ring.
Now, it's obviously not where you want to be, facing down a Blade Splicer, a Sword of Feast and Famine, an Inkmoth Nexus, plenty of mana, and several cards in hand. Snapcaster Mage just down. Just has another body to pressure on, and that's the clock, that's lethal. Because now he puts the sword on the 1/1, and he has a 3/3 to 2/1 to get through. Edgar Flores, Callblade Extraordinaire, ties it up.
It's in 1-1. And Chris is going to get to be on the play again. And I'm interested to see how Edgar's going to sideboard for this last game. I think Revoke Existence is probably going to come in.
Out of Edgar?
Out of Edgar. Maybe not, though. We could ask him at some point whether or not he sided in the Revokes.
Yep.
We know he sided in the Sun Titans.
Another Retro looked good to me.
Yeah, and
like it was fine. It wasn't amazing, but he's got some bad cards, so you got to play something. Yeah. And
I mean, he did what he was supposed to with it. He got it to 6.
Yeah, and obviously Chris stumbled, but I mean, Chris would have drawn 2 extra cards from the Sphinx before it could have got bombed if he hadn't stumbled. How many land is Edgar playing? I mean, obviously he's only 2 colors, so he doesn't have as tough of requirements, but 26.
26.
He's still playing 26. That's discipline.
Yeah.
He's 2 colors.
It's 2 colors. He in his main deck, his curve stops at 5, and he's only playing 2 5-drops, and he's playing 26 lands.
It's good.
I like that.
Yeah, and he's got land that do things. 4 Nexuses and a Moorland Haunt to help make sure there's always somebody to carry one of his 3 swords.
I think that's something Edgar does very well, is he plays enough land. Edgar is a very new Magic player. I don't know if you know how new he is to the game, but he has been playing for maybe 2 years.
Yeah, just barely. Yeah.
He was a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and when they stopped having those Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, he started playing some Magic cards.
Wait, that's really weird. So you're saying that if there isn't support for high-level competitive tournament play in a game, the great minds stop playing it?
And move on to different games?
That's really weird. There's a life lesson to be learned there. I would really, 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 think about that, because that's really interesting. I mean, I know that this game is really lucky to have a guy like Edgar Flores.
Yeah.
And that Yu-Gi-Oh is much worse off without him. But I mean, I'm sure the people doing Yu-Gi-Oh aren't just trying to, exploit the Yu-Gi-Oh players in the short run, and they want the Yu-Gi-Oh to be continuing to do well for many years. So they must have a strategy.
Longevity.
Yeah, there must be a strategy behind why they would do this. Because, do we have any any feedback from the people on Twitter? Any? I'm going to take a look at.
All right, so something interesting about Edgar. I first met Edgar because he and I were both on a bus up to Canada to play in a Grand Prix, and I had never met him before. And he was very new to Magic at the time, and it was a limited Grand Prix. He was talking about cards, and he did not sound like he knew what he was talking about at all. And I was It's like, who is this guy? Why is he taking an 11-hour bus ride up to Canada? Because he was clearly very unprepared for the event.
Oh yeah.
We go to Canada, and that night we drafted in a practice field with a bunch of people who were staying at the same hotel, people from like New York City area, and he was there. And from the beginning of us starting playing to the end of us starting playing, Edgar Flores went through a transformation where all of a sudden he was very good at playing. And the next day, he played in the Grand Prix. I'm not sure if that was his first Grand Prix or second Grand Prix, and he day two'd.
He's a very quick learner.
With no buys.
Yeah, sure. Just grind it up from the bottom. So Chris leading off with Seacrum Coast Isolated Chapel, which is actually a really good way to be for him because it
Wrath of God
so much
mana,
of his colors, you know?
Yeah.
He's
The only
now,
thing he's off of is Liliana.
Yeah, he's a swamp away from everything. That's assuming he goes straight up to 6 like he's supposed to.
Oh, yeah.
Blade Splicer. Oh, it actually sticks. That's definitely annoying for, you know, because like if you can counter the first threat that comes down and just stay a little bit ahead of the game.
Yeah, then he's in excellent shape.
Dark Slick Shores, there's that perfect mana now.
You know, he can cast whatever he wants to at this point.
So now Edgar is definitely ahead. Like the fact that Edgar was able to stick a substantial threat.
Mm-hmm.
Edgar doesn't have all the permission in the world to protect it, but if he draws a leak, it makes his Snapcasters into Mystic Snakes. And I mean, the burden is on Chris to do something now. It's definitely, you know, Chris's move to try to, you know,
force some action.
Yeah. The tough thing is if he tries to make the wrong move and ends up getting tapped out, because if Edgar ever sticks a sword, you know, like unchecked, that's how it just spirals out. Liliana, not the best versus Blade Splicer.
Yes.
Not at all.
I think if I'm Edgar, I just let it resolve, even if I have the counter spell.
Especially, I mean, like he doesn't have the mana to Doomblade a guy also, you know, to make things awkward. Because if Edgar had to attack with just the Golem and Chris Doombladed in combat, that taps some of Edgar's mana on his own turn to protect it, if he even can. As it stands, most likely what we're going to see is Liliana killing a 1/1 and preventing 3 damage.
Yeah.
But you got to do something. I mean, he might even have another Liliana's hand. I mean, besides, it's little battles. Maybe he's playing Edgar for a sucker. Maybe he thought maybe Edgar will fight over this. It's Liliana. It's a, you know, 50, 60, you know.
It's a powerful spell.
Yeah.
Edgar knows better. And Edgar doesn't even have to deal 3 to Liliana. He just gets to kill it with a Spirit Token. It's the Moorland Haunt. Got activated by the Blade Splicer, hitting the bin.
That's not the most progress I've seen. Like Liliana didn't really do a ton.
Anything.
It dealt 1 damage and prevented. No, I guess it prevented 1 damage.
Yes.
And it sort of was a Purify the Grave. Like it removed 1 card out of the graveyard.
Yeah, it gave him 1 less
Future activation.
future activation.
Now there's the Day of Judgment,
And Edgar's got a negate.
which turns the Snapcaster Mage way on.
Yes.
And if there's one thing that we all like to do, it is turn on Tiago Chan.
So let's see.
Mana leak to protect. Edgar allows it.
And step, Snapcaster for the beats.
Does this mean a sword is about to come down?
That's what I would expect.
Oh, he
Beating
doesn't
at
have the
5th
land.
Yeah.
Brutal. Well, there's the sword.
Yeah. I mean, we knew what he was setting up for.
Yeah.
You gotta fight for it.
Oh wow, there's Sun Titan. Making that Liliana play much, much better. He needed to get the Liliana into his graveyard, so there's nothing wrong with that. This is getting
Suddenly
bad
very
fast.
bad for Edgar.
This is very bad. I don't think Edgar really has the tool. Like it's called, like the blade decks are often the kind of deck that needs to stay ahead the whole time. Like, they're very good, but They're not good at catching up a lot of the time.
The thing is nothing's really good at catching up with Solar Flare once in.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're
You're doing the most powerful things that you can do.
The Solar Flare is very powerful when it comes together, and as we saw, Chris drew the right mix of land. He didn't miss a land drop. It was good that he played the Liliana when he did. You know, we laughed at the time, but he needed to get into his yard to set up this exact play. He's very fortunate that Edgar missed a land drop, but what is Edgar going to do to get out of this now? Because, like, Sun Titan doesn't really have answers to Sun Titan beyond O-Ring, right?
No. It is Vigilance, so even Gideon doesn't even...
Yeah. Dispersing a Sun Titan is a losing proposition.
It is.
Obviously, he blew his Snapcaster. Yeah, I don't... But Edgar, you know, Edgar is not the type of guy to get shook just because he's in a 99.5% chance to lose type of position.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's still going to play for his win.
I think he's just like, okay, we're just going to have to figure out what is that play? What is the line that can actually get out of this? We're going to see O-Ring, probably in the Sun Titan. I imagine this actually might shake some players, some of Solar Flare players in this position. Well, not if they have an O-Ring of their own, but just because of, you know, Edgar going into the tank and coming out with O-Ring to your Sun Titan. Because if he goes into the tank, you're thinking, okay, I got him. But O-Ring on the Sun Titan. Real hard with Liliana in play. Real hard to beat.
Yeah.
And you can't really justify bringing in Purges because, like, a lot of these people only have 2 Lilianas. Alright. Edgar Flores, 5 land, and a Sword of Feast and Famine. Facing down incredible odds, Chris Higashi has Liliana of the Veil and Sun Titan. Plenty of mana, all of his colors, cards in hand. I've seen Edgar come back from worse. Not much. Wow. The worst card in Chris's hand was Snapcaster Mage.
That does not bode well for Edgar.
Now, to be fair, when the Sun Titan attacks, now it has something to get back. Oh yeah, synergy, baby. And a mana leak. Because Chris doesn't want Edgar to, even for a moment, have a shred of hope. Edgar trying at the end step to disperse, right?
Trying to bounce that Sun Titan. So Edgar just passes.
Chris's turn again. Just going to see more ticking up with Liliana. Sun Titan getting in there, getting back a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, now
we give these Solar Flare decks a hard time sometimes, but they do come together, and they come together nicely.
Oh yeah, when you hit those land drops right and you draw the right mix, you're very hard to beat.
And he's playing 27 lands, so he's doing his part.
No, I'm not saying it's...
It's interesting, he's playing a build that just can't beat an Incomoth Nexus. I mean, he's got 3 Doom Blades, but I mean, like, his matchup against Wolf Run, he's just O-Rings and Day of Judgments and Think Twices and Counterspells. It's like, I mean, Solar Flare's always had a tough time against Wolf Run, but in recent times we've seen so much green-white and so much infect that maybe this is just a sweet metagame call too, where there isn't that much Wolf Run this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked around as much as I'd like to, but that's definitely a possibility. Now, Chris goes ahead and cast Think Twice.
Just continue. Why not? You know, just keep building his advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know for sure that Edgar doesn't have days, although we do.
Yes. Now, Edgar's going to get to equip this sword.
So he's got something going on. This is a thing.
He's going to attack this Liliana.
Well, only if you can stop the Sun Titan.
Yeah.
Makes a token. I mean, he's grinding. This is he's definitely he's planeswalker pointing Chris every bit he can.
I mean, he's got Chris down to 8 now. Untapping all of his lands. This, you know, he's played this really well.
So technically he beats the board if he can stop that Snapcaster. No, he doesn't even have to. No, the Liliana. He's making progress. Chris is at 8 life.
I agree.
Which is against a sword and multiple flyers. I mean, besides, part of it is also, it's not just, hoping that Chris has nothing. Chris could misplay in some way. So he's got to give himself chances. I mean, this is a complicated matchup.
I thought this was over. I was ready to lock it up.
99.5 is not 100. Still, probably 99.5. But
interesting enough, because Chris took that Liliana up to 3, he's unable to use the Liliana to make
twice to edict and then edict again.
Yeah.
Or not edict? Yeah, edict and then edict again. Sadly, he has another O-ring because of Liliana that he was able to discard and get into play without having to pay any mana. So Edgar no longer has the sword, which means Edgar he has to block with the token because it's, So Edgar's pretty far away from being able to race, but he's got a token. So a sword is something. He needs obviously stopping Sun Titan would be great. A Dismember would be good. Block then Dismember the Sun Titan. He's got his own Sun Titan, but he doesn't have 6 lands still. So brutal that he doesn't have the 6 land. He's got his own Sun Titan in his hand. Draws out the Dissipate.
Well, I believe that's a revoke existence, so he wanted that to resolve.
Oh yeah, the revoke existence would have been real nice. Revoke the Oblivion Ring on you to get an Oblivion Ring. Edgar deciding what to do with this token. Liliana is at 2 right now, right? Or is it at 1?
I believe it's at 1.
1 is an interesting thing. You don't attack it so that he doesn't get the extra hit from Liliana, Because if you attack it and kill it, then he'll be able to edict you. At 1, he can't do anything. All he can do is make a discard. Edgar's a champ. I mean, he is way, way behind. But he's playing really tight for a guy who's in a nearly hopeless position.
Yeah, he's playing really, really tight.
Mostly dead is still very much partly alive.
Yes.
So, Sun Titan bringing back Snapcaster Mage. Problem being that this once again puts Edgar on a 1-turn clock.
Alright, so let's see.
So,
Edgar's
another
dead.
Snapcaster Mage comes down, dissipates, Edgar packs. Chris Higashi has won 2-1. Wait. Yeah, that was game 3, right?
Yeah, that was game 3.
Higashi
I mean, that was
2-1.
a very impressive game.
Yeah, by both players. I mean, both players played very strong. Chris could have made a
played
couple.
really well, too.
If Chris would have made a couple mistakes, Edgar was putting himself in a position to capitalize on it. But Chris played very tight.
That was a good match.
Absolutely.
Happy we got to watch that.
So looks like we're gonna go on a break, and then when we come back, we're gonna try to get to responses, test the waters of what the people following along at home are predicting. They will dominate the top 8 or show up in the top 8 anyway.